Is killing 274 Palestinians, including many children, an acceptable price to pay for the freeing of 4 Israelis?
Like I said, I don't. This you want a clear answer, and
Yeah.
you want to make this black and
Is it
white.
an acceptable price to pay?
It's an unacceptable price, but I think it's a price that has to be paid.
Wow.
What you're about to watch is one of the most uncomfortable interviews an American politician has faced in years. Mehdi Hassan, famous for never letting politicians dodge tough questions, sits down with Dean Phillips. And within the first minute, Mehdi asks a question so simple a child could answer it. Do innocent lives matter equally? That's it. But what should have been a one-word answer turns into an 8-minute political meltdown. You're about to watch a sitting congressman twist himself into knots, contradict himself in real time, and accidentally say the quiet part out loud. Stay with me, because the third exchange is the moment everyone is talking about, and the ending? The ending is the kind of answer that gives press secretaries nightmares.
Do Palestinian lives just not matter to the modern Democratic Party?
Oh, I think that's a horrifying statement. Let me acknowledge
It's a question.
let me acknowledge the 38,000 human beings killed in Gaza, the 1,200 Israelis, but particularly the innocents. To me, it's all the same. They're human beings. I'm appalled and disgusted. First of all, there are Americans being held hostage. Let me change the lens for a moment. I believe, if anything, it has been the United States and the Biden administration should have been the foremost responsibility to extract our hostages, our nationals. I think there are 6 or 7 still, we don't know even if they're alive. So the question is, would we undertake an effort to extract American hostages, 2, 3, 4, 7, if we knew 200 civilians would be killed in the process?
What's the answer?
Boy, that's a tough, that's
a tough question?
That's a tough question. If you're the leader of a country, absolutely.
You killed 200 people to save 6.
Mehdi, look at our, first of all, I'm the son of I'm a Gold Star son. I lost my dad in Vietnam. One of the most despicable, I think, wars of the United States has ever prosecuted. We've killed hundreds of thousands of innocent people over the years. We continue to. Look at what we did in Japan to end a war. These are philosophical questions that most Americans would never want to be faced with.
But you're a member of Congress, right?
I'm a member of Congress.
You wanted to be president.
Yes.
So let me ask you the straight-up question.
Let me answer your question.
Please.
I believe, as the President of the United States, his or her obligation should always be the safety and security of Americans first. It does not mean dismissing other humanity. But in the case of hostages, when it comes to this, and we've tried this before, and we've seen carnage. The fact of the matter is, I think we should extract. And by the way, if that means there are civilian deaths as a result, unfortunately, that's, I think, a cost.
Well, the cost implies there's no other choice. We, of course, know that there was another way to get the hostages out.
I have empathy.
No, well, hold on. There's another way to get the hostages out. We got over 100 hostages out in a deal in November. You could have got Benjamin Netanyahu blocking another deal. But just I want to be very specific. In your view, is killing 274 Palestinians, including many children, an acceptable price to pay for the freeing of 4 Israelis?
Like I said, I don't. You want a clear answer, and you want to make this black and white.
Is it an acceptable price to pay?
It's an unacceptable price, but I think it's a price that has to be paid.
Wow.
Okay, pause for a second and think about what you just heard. Mehdi Hassan asks a direct question. Is killing 274 people, including children, an acceptable price to free 4 hostages? And Dean Phillips responds, it's an unacceptable price, but it has to be paid. Think about that. It's unacceptable, but it still has to happen. That's not a straight answer. That's a politician short-circuiting on live TV. Then comes the classic escape line. Well, if we look at questions like this in a vacuum, that's what politicians say when a yes or no question becomes too dangerous. Suddenly, everything is more complicated. But Mehdi doesn't let him dodge it, especially after the congressman already admitted America has killed innocent people in past wars. So the excuse falls apart immediately. And now watch the body language, the pauses, the shifting, the throat clearing. That's the moment a politician realizes the camera's just caught something he can't easily take back.
Okay, so how many Palestinians would it be acceptable to kill in order to get back a single hostage? What's the upper limit? Would 400?
When we start talking about human lives, every single one life is too many. And let me just, let's
but you
be
just said
human
that 274 is a price that has to be paid.
Because
I'm saying if it was 1,000, would you pay that?
Because in my estimation, if we look at questions like this in a vacuum, of course we're going to come up with different answers than in the context of the entire challenge of the Middle East. Because if we are increasingly seen, the United States of America in particular, as unwilling to sometimes do what's necessary to demonstrate some strength and prevent.
Congressman, you just said a moment ago we have a history of killing thousands of innocent people.
We do. And my father died in a war that was.
I do need to ask a question for the value of Palestinian life.
Yes.
So If you're saying that to get free people from the clutches of horrible captivity, hostages, people possibly being abused in captivity, to free them, you have to pay a price, right? It's a horrible price. Does that ratio work the other way? How many Israelis can Palestinians kill in order to free Palestinian detainees who are currently being tortured in Israeli captivity, some of them being raped to death, according to the New York Times last week? Can they kill 200 Israelis? Hold on, let me finish the question. Can they kill 200 Israelis to free 4 Palestinians who are being tortured in an Israeli prison?
I think it's a question that I'm sure Palestinians are asking the same way as
Israelis.
Israelis.
No, you answered it. You answered it for Israel. I would like you to answer it in reverse.
Let me just clarify something you just said. You said Palestinian prisoners are being raped to death by Israeli soldiers?
Yes, this is a report in the New York Times last week.
Okay. I don't believe that to be true. Nonetheless.
And here's the trap, the moment everyone needs to pay attention to. Mehdi Hassan takes the congressman's own logic and flips it back on him. If killing civilians to free hostages is a price that has to be paid for one side, then the same logic has to apply to the other side too. That's not a gotcha, that's consistency. And watch what happens. Dean Phillips can't answer directly. He tries to dodge by saying Israelis and Palestinians see things differently, but that wasn't the question. Mehdi was asking about his moral framework. Then Phillips goes even further and dismisses the reporting Mehdi cites, saying, "I don't believe that to be true." And the look on Mehdi's face right after? That's the moment he realizes this interview is about to make headlines.
A 41-year-old detainee said, the interrogators made me sit on something like a hot metal stick and it felt like fire. He said another detainee died after they put the electric stick up his anus.
No, it's repulsive.
This is an Israeli dungeon that CNN and New York Times have both reported on. UN investigators. So to free people from that prison, can you kill lots of innocent people according to the logic of the raid in Gaza?
What I'm trying to say is, if you represent the Palestinian people, you represent the Israeli people, we look at this quite differently. I don't want to
I know you do, which is why I'm asking the question, Congressman. I understand that you see it differently. A lot of people watching at home say, why? Why aren't all lives equal?
They should be.
But they're not.
Well, then let's
go. You.
But then let's go. Look, what I don't want to do is get into a debate of who suffered worse, whose lives.
I'm not asking that. I'm asking about our lives treated equally.
Innocent Palestinian lives matter just as much as innocent Israeli lives, Muslim lives as much as Jewish and Christian lives. That's who I am. So, now, with all that said, war is hell, and this is nauseating. And we're trying to get back. I worry about
this line, war is hell, because can't Hamas say the same thing when you accuse them of war crimes? They can say war is hell.
Yes,
Isn't that why we have rules to war?
Yes,
so that we stop it from being hell?
Yes, they can. War is hell. And by the way, look at it. Let me go back. Let me go back to Netanyahu. I've said to his face, as the ranking member of the Middle East Subcommittee on Foreign Affairs, as a Jewish man, you can imagine that. Look, you're a Muslim man. I'm a Jewish man. We represent, to some degree, when we're on public platforms, our people, our diasporas. I've said to Netanyahu's face, in Israel, in Jerusalem, in his office, what I felt, which is the settlement policy is creating dynamics that will only make Israel's security and safety at grave risk. His treatment of Palestinians, when people have nothing to protect, they act in ways that the rest of the free world would consider irrational. So this goes way back. The question is, they're both wrong. Netanyahu is wrong. Hamas is wrong. I don't want to equate the two, but the fact of the matter...
That wasn't my question, but I appreciate you making that point.
I want to make that clear.
Let's talk about Netanyahu briefly in a different context. You said war is hell. I don't like that statement. I think war has rules. People should follow the rules of war to prevent it from being hell. Right? We built an entire post-war legal architecture for that reason. America led the way.
Well, after we dropped nuclear weapons, after we firebombed Tokyo,
and then we came up with Geneva Conventions, UN Declaration, etc., Universal Declaration. You have said, no one is above the law. You've said repeatedly on Twitter in relation to Donald Trump, and I agree with you. You're right. What I don't understand is why you insist on putting Benjamin Netanyahu, who you don't like, you've said that since the beginning of this interview, why you insist on putting him above international law. You were one of 42 House Democrats who voted with Republicans earlier this month to impose sanctions on the ICC chief prosecutor and other ICC officials after he announced he was seeking an arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu. You are a Democrat, a liberal, a supporter of the rule of law, and you're going after the International Criminal Court to protect Benjamin Netanyahu.
They went beyond their purview, Mehdi, and they did not afford, they didn't even follow their own process in this case. Look, I have some misgivings about the ICC. This was very distinct. By the way, he's not above the law. And in fact, I think everything you just shared, whether it is the prisoner who was just tortured, according to this report, war crimes by Hamas, war crimes by Israel, yes, they should be litigated. It should be transparent. It should be public. I think the way the ICC went about it was absolutely incorrect.
Why?
But do I believe, because they didn't follow their own standards, and They were beyond their purview. Of course, Israel and the U.S. not party to the ICC.
Nor is Russia.
And I think, by
Hold
the
on,
way,
nor is, first of all, Palestine is party to the
I
ICC, as you know, and Russia isn't, and we all supported the ICC arrest warrants against Putin. Biden was happy with it, said it was good.
like I just said, it's beyond their purview. And secondly,
Why is Putin not beyond their purview, but Netanyahu is?
well, I think the whole methodology, frankly, of the ICC right now.
I get that, but we didn't have but you didn't vote for sanctions on the ICC when they went after Putin, only after Netanyahu.
I understand. In this case, I do not believe that the way they did not afford Israel even the right to respond. Yeah, I believe in due process. Let me put it that way. I believe in due process. The way they pursued this did not afford him that. Look, I'm not a defender of Benjamin Netanyahu.
Wait, you voted for a bill?
Yeah.
Okay, so this bill you voted for, most Democrats,
Sure.
you know, didn't vote for this bill.
didn't.
It's so broad. Even if we were to agree with you that they're outside their purview, and they would say they're not, it didn't just go after ICC officials, but also, quote, the immediate family members of ICC officials. That is mob-like behavior, is it not, to go after family members?
And by the way, 95% of what we vote on in Congress has elements that we find distasteful.
But you voted for
that's
it.
Of course, that's our job
And
in
you stand
Congress.
by
We have
that.
a choice. I stand by that vote, of course.
So you
But
stand, hold on, you
but-
stand by putting sanctions on ICC Chief Prosecutor Karim Khan's 2 adult sons. What did they do wrong?
Mehdi, what I stand by is a vote. First of all, we have votes in Congress that
Understood.
we know will not end up going anywhere. We have votes that we know will probably be signed into law. They have very different
So
consequences.
you voted for this one because you don't think it'll be signed into law?
Well, first, no,
Symbolic.
I voted for this as a message because I do think it's a
A
principle.
message,
and,
hold on, a message to ICC Chief Prosecutor Karim Khan's 2 sons. What did they do wrong?
Now, you know that's not what my intent was. And by the way, if
It
you
doesn't
look at
matter what
everything,
with the respect, Congressman,
Then-
it doesn't matter what your intent is.
then look-
it matters what you voted for. You voted for a very mafiosi bill, which says
mafiosi bill. No,
you don't think going after the children of a prosecutor
they're
is
not going after
Trump-like,
the,
babe?
Mehdi, they're not going after the
What does it mean
children.
to put sanctions on the children of the prosecutor?
My point is, but that's not a mafioso bill. By the way, if that is,
Picking on
then
the
everything
family
we vote
members
on-
of someone?
Mehdi,
That's the kind of thing Donald Trump does, Congressman,
you're-
not Dean Phillips.
You're an educated man. You know how the Congress works. You know how bills operate.
Just because I know how it works doesn't mean I agree
I'm
with
just
it,
saying.
Congressman.
But when a lot of what you agree, when the overwhelming portion of a bill you agree with, and you're forced with a yes or no. First of all, I don't vote present. I don't say I was there. I'm not taking a position. I say yes or no. And I think in this case, I registered my principle that the ICC did not conduct itself in a manner
But you could
befitting
have
of the
said
court.
that in a speech, in a statement, an article. You didn't need to vote for a bill which targets the
I have said
family
that.
members of ICC
and by the way,
officials.
and I'll say it to you right now. They shouldn't be targeted, the family members.
Okay, but you voted for that.
And that right there is the entire interview summed up in one exchange. They shouldn't be targeted, the family members. Okay, but you voted for that, end of story. That's one of the cleanest checkmates you'll ever see in a political interview. Dean Phillips spends the whole conversation defending a bill that sanctioned not just ICC officials, but even their adult children. And when Mehdi Hassan corners him on it, his defense basically becomes, yeah, but most of the bill was fine. That's the power of long-form interviews. You get to watch a politician's reasoning unravel in real time. No teleprompter, no staffer, just tough questions and live answers. So tell me in the comments, did Dean Phillips actually answer the original question, or did this interview reveal something else entirely? And if you made it this far, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because we break down the interviews mainstream networks pretend never happened. I'll see you in the next one.